This time on build season, I'm gonna see if I can't take this 1978 Dodge Diplomat that's been sitting for a number of years, fix it up, and drive it 3,600 miles to Tucson Dragway for Duct Tape Drags. Of course, we can't take something perfectly reliable and new, so I scored this 78 Diplomat on Marketplace for a princely sum of $1,200. I apologize for the dim lighting. I am starting this video after work on a Tuesday. I work full time and I'm trying to do this after work before the sun goes down. I have exactly 11 days until I would need to leave in order to meet up with Poverty Tour in Joplin, Missouri. So here's the specimen right here. This is a 1978 Dodge Diplomat. As far as I understand, this is the base model of this chassis. This is equipped with a 318 and a 2-barrel lean burn carburetor setup. Look at the interior of this car. The interior of this car is like flawless. I can't believe it. Probably the coolest part is this right here. 52,848 miles. And if you look under here at the pedal pads, that, I believe, is actual mileage. Like, this thing has barely been driven. Now, I know we're skipping ahead just a little bit, but here's a look under the hood. I mean, look at this thing. Look at how clean this is. And yes, this is a lean burn setup, but this is a 318 with a 2-barrel, or the half-electric bastardized version that is the lean burn carburetor. There isn't a battery in it yet, but the previous owner did say, if I throw a battery in this and a little bit of gas in the tank, it should fire up. I know what you're thinking. The age-old question. Do we blindly trust the marketplace seller that really didn't provide us with much more information? Now, as I am in the pants, I am also short on time. But looking this thing over, the radiator hoses look relatively new. The belts actually seem to be in decent condition. Maybe a few of them are a little old, but I don't see any major cracking. So I think I'm going to check fluids and just verify that everything is here. And then I think I'm going to throw a battery in it and give it a shot. Oil actually looks pretty good. Perfectly up to level and full. And the oil itself actually looks very, very, very clean. This is kind of incredible. I don't know how well that's going to show up. Doesn't matter. Take my word for it. So they hide the transmission dipstick way over here. But look at that. I mean, so we're not going to be able to check this and verify level until we're hot, idling, and neutral, but fluid looks red. There's no obvious signs that it's burnt up. It doesn't smell bad. Looks like it's nice red fluid. Moving on. All right, let's check antifreeze. Look at that. Literally right up to level and green coolant. All right. I am curious about this power steering pump. It does look like we have some evidence of leaking or something, so absolutely nothing. All right, so that, we're gonna need to top that off. In my experience, power steering pumps are actually pretty tough. You can run them out of fluid a few times, but what will kill it, almost guaranteed, is to run it without fluid for a long time. Let's just toss some in. Actually seems like it's already up to level. I mean, if I don't overfill the power steering fluid, how am I going to keep my perfect record of spilling oil all over my driveway? All right, so in full transparency, the previous owner said this car's run recently, so I'm not trying to hide the fact that this thing probably will fire up with a battery. On the way home, I put a couple gallons of fresh gas in this thing. So because I'm in a rush, I have 11 days till I leave, I'm just going to throw a battery in this thing and hope that it fires right off. Okay, so here's our reconned battery from O'Reilly, and this one is definitely small. The only downside with the recon batteries is that they don't really list a cold cranking amp on here. They just recondition the batteries, put them on the shelf, and you get them for cheap, 75 bucks. All right, here we go. Hey, got a buzzer in here. Oh, that's horrible. Okay. Let's try it again. All right, number 3. Oh, hey! Oh. Ooh. A little bit of smoke out the tailpipe. Hey! All right. So the power steering works, it just leaks. I mean, look at this thing. This thing sounds really good. So I assume, considering the mileage, hey look, okay, we've got gauges. Okay, so we're charging. And I don't hear any engine noise. Hey look, marker lights work. All right, saved me a bunch of time. I don't hear anything weird yet. 53,000 mile original car. Said it ran recently. So I understand that I'm more of a drive first, ask questions later kind of guy, but I am curious and on a time crunch. Okay, so we know it runs. Seems like it actually runs okay. The brakes feel really stiff. Like I get like a half inch of travel out of them, but oh, wow. The shift into reverse is violent. Okay. Seems like the brakes do sort of work. Let's go to drive. Okay, we got drive. And we're moving forward. I know you can barely see me, but just want to see what this thing does. That's second gear. So far, I know you can't see anything really, but this thing is driving down the road. We're only doing 30 miles an hour. Oh, I think that was third gear. It just shifted. So I do hear some sort of rotating clunking. I don't want to drive it too far. I want to make sure that I check the rear end, all that other stuff. But right now, it almost seems like we've got brakes holding up. So when I accelerate, I'm holding the wheel to the left. And then when I let go of the wheel, we go right for the ditch. Yep, I am smelling brakes. Hardcore. I'm not sure if it's front or rear, both, no idea. So let's get her in the shop, take a look. So I need to get this thing in the air, inventory what I need, and order parts right away. Lately, I've had really bad luck. Even if I get stuff from O'Reilly's, it ships and then it gets delayed by UPS. First and foremost, I see right here, we have an egregious power steering leak. It is literally dripping. It appears that that is leaking right out of the front of that pump. It's hard to tell if this is leaking, if all of this is blowing back from that pump, just absolutely dumping fluid out of the front. Let's see, rust-wise, this thing is minimal. I can't believe how clean this thing actually is. This catalytic converter, that's coming out. You can guarantee that. Suppose let's remove the Buick wheel cover. Holy cow, that thing is roasting. I'm gonna go after this wheel that's really, really hot first. I don't know if that's a good idea, but hot nuts, holy shit. Okay, well, tire came off easy. Yeah, this might be our problem. I don't know if you can see the slight bluish hue to this. Holy crap, is that hot. That freaking brake rotor is like 245 degrees, almost 250 degrees. Yeah, check this out. These are drum retainer clips. As far as I understand, they just hold the drum in place. Somebody in the comments tell me, is this a factory thing? Like, are these brakes original to the car yet? I mean, they could be in the rear at 50,000 miles. I don't know. If you know if that's factory or just some aftermarket thing, chime in. All right, I got the car down to a more manageable level. I mean, what am I, Steve Brigadier from the Rust Farm? He could work on it way up there, but I can't. You know, I know a guy who carries the pliers all the time, and it seems like it's pretty handy, but what do you do in the shower? Okay, loud part. Upon first glance, you probably can tell from there, these shoes are almost gone. Being that these are rear brakes, this is going to go to the back of the list. I don't actually see any signs that this has been leaking. So, good news. This wheel cylinder might be good. I'll check both sides. Driver's side rear looks very dry as well. And again, the shoes do not look very good. There is still some friction material there, but not much. Added benefit of brake cleaning the whole drum before you touch it is it will kill most of the creatures. Now, because we're going to make a trip that is so far, I'm still torn on, do I pull this rotor off and have it cut because it still seems fine, or order new rotors and pads, do them up anyway, because if anything, we're going to rely on these. Back on the passenger side here, and this, holy cow, this thing is still just roasting hot. So this is curious. I saw this on a video from No Nonsense Know-How. If you look at this brake hose and you see how it's coming through this bracket right here, and this bracket is rusted, I wonder if this thing is rust jacking and pinching that hose. Either way, this hose doesn't look great. It needs to be replaced. But I'm curious, if I can pry that open, I wonder if this brake will move a little easier. Look at that. There you can see how pinched that hose was by the rust. So thanks, Chris. No nonsense. That's an awesome tip to check for that. However, it still means we need a hose. At least the soft line's coming loose. It's not coming out of there. I'm going to put a pry bar in between here to see if I can't wiggle the caliper to at least get this. Oh, hang on. There. Okay. Now at least the rotor moves. What do you think? Large screwdriver to get the caliper off? I didn't think so. Wait. Oh, yep. Just kidding. I should pretend to know what I'm talking about before I start talking, right? Well, there you go. You can see the piston on the caliper's broken. Have to get a set of those on the way. I'm glad to know that that's what was holding up the brakes. You can see really clearly there where that bracket rust jacked and then essentially swedged that line closed. So, crack it here, you get fluid, you get nothing out of this, that's fine. That explains why the caliper wouldn't retract, because the fluid was stuck in the line and it couldn't go back. So I was trying to get ready on this side and crack that line, and of course it's rusted all the way through. I'd like to interrupt your program for a little bit of gratitude. We had a couple more Parts Fund donations. John Kaufman, Evan Ramsey, William Carthers, and 411 Now Media again. Thank you all so very much for donating. Parts Fund's donations go right back into the cars that I build. That makes the wheels go round, keeps the lights on, and keeps us going. Now back to the video. I ordered brake parts. They're delayed. Thanks a lot, Rock Auto and UPS. So here it is Thursday night, and we're not going to get brake parts until Monday. In the meantime, Sam's here, by the way. See him in the background. In the meantime, we're going to start working on removing the worst part of this car. Cue Mopar's beautiful yet horrible lean burn system. This is a primitive electronically controlled emission system. There's a little bitty computer in here. There's a carburetor with an electronic component. I don't know if it's like a solenoid valve or if it's like a stepper motor. We're not really sure. But what I do know about these is that they are infamous for failing. They will leave you on the side of the road with a crank no start condition because that computer will get fried. So just like all Chrysler ignition components or electronics of the era, this doesn't work, and I want it out of there. Here's the basics of what you need to get rid of the lean burn. All of these parts. So Sam heard that I bought a Mopar, so immediately he brought a box of old crusty carburetors, a 4-barrel intake manifold off a 360, and in that box, a points distributor. We'll start by getting rid of this lean burn computer over here. Not sure how it comes apart, but I'm sure we'll find out. Huh. Looks relatively clean in the air cleaner here. Get this dryer ducting out of the way. There's the harness. All right. Here's your lean burn carburetor. And yeah, I think it's, I don't know, there's a wire right here that goes in it, and there's this funky thing, and I don't know, there's all kinds of stuff going on with this carb, and I don't want it. So we're gonna get a vacuum, suck all this shit up, and then get that carb off there. One lean burn electric, I don't care, carburetor out of here. All right, now using the compression tester, I can keep this socket on the crank bolt because it keeps falling off. Oh, there, maybe. All right, we registered something on the compression tester. It moved the needle. That looks pretty darn close. I'm gonna find the timing mark and verify that we are at top dead center on number 1. Then we can pull the distributor. All right, so there is our timing mark and we are right at 0. There, that was a lot easier than I expected. Hold down plate and bolt up there. 1 lean burn distributor out. So next day, get ready to get this intake manifold out of here. As I thought, with the amount of orange RTV that I see present here, it's probably going to be a chore to get these valve covers off. Oh, no way. They made the valve cover gasket of red RTV. That is why there's so much of it. Because the entire thing is made of red RTV. Oh, my gosh. I mean, I know that you can do this technically, and it must have worked, but oh man. Why is it always the red stuff too? They make other colors, you know. There. Trying not to dump all this crap directly in the valley. Oh, all right. 50 or 75 pound manifold. I got the old intake manifold sitting here on the bench and the new one over here, and I'm working on swapping stuff over. And the first thing I realized was the thermostat outlet is much larger and different on the newer intake versus the old one. I called Sam. He has an old thermostat housing and I think even an old thermostat, as well as a couple other bits and bobs that I need. So I won't worry about that for now. I already got one of the coolant temp sensor switch moved over here. The other one I pulled out of the old manifold, and then I tried to get the old one out of the new old manifold, and it snapped off flush with the manifold. There is the little nipple still stuck in the intake. Basically what I did was I took a carbide bit on a drill and just slowly walked it around the inside of that hole, and then I finished it off a little bit with like a 1/2-inch drill bit just to kind of hog out all the material that broke off in there. And now I'm going in with just a 3/8 inch NPT tap, and I'm basically just retapping the hole, and my hope is that this tap will essentially just cut the rest of the material out and just leave threads behind. Look at that, it basically threads in there. Okay, perfect. Welcome back, it's Sunday and I finally got parts. Believe it or not, Rock Auto shipped some stuff a little bit early, which I wonder if they heard what I said. Anyway, we have brake parts, but we're gonna finish up with the top end of the engine first. I'm gonna do something that's probably unpopular. I'm gonna use the China wall gaskets on this 318. If anything, it'll just save me a little bit of RTV. Google says 35 foot-pounds for a 318 V8 intake manifold bolt torque. That's what we're gonna go with. All right, valve cover's back on. Now with these, I'm gonna go real easy. It'd be really awesome if I grabbed the right socket. Intake manifold's on, valve covers are on. So the next thing we need to figure out is the carburetor. Sam dropped off a bunch of other parts the other day. And among that, he dropped off this Holley carburetor, as well as another one very similar to this. This one is a list 6190-1, and I tried to do some searching on this thing. It was very difficult to find exact information. What I believe is that this is a 4-barrel vacuum secondary OEM Holley for a Chrysler. This could have come on like a 383 or maybe a 440, but I'm not totally sure. This is a 4160 style carburetor, so the way that you can tell is because there's a metering block in the primary side, but there isn't one in the secondary side. 4150 style carburetors have metering blocks, both primary and secondary. The other thing that you should know is that this is a side hung float. So instead of the float hinging in the center, like most aftermarket Holley carburetors or new carburetors today, this is an OEM unit. So the float actually hinges from the side, and the needle and seat sits right under here, and it's fixed. You can't adjust it. However, they can still go bad and you need to replace them. You will need this particular rebuild kit right here. Part number is 37-119. This is available at O'Reilly's. This is the carburetor kit that has brand new fixed needle and seats. I'm going to rebuild this carburetor in a catch pan. The idea is hopefully to, number one, keep everything on this carburetor with it, but then also maybe I can get a little bit more out of this brake clean before it just runs right down the oil catch. Okay, so it's been a long time. I've been off camera for a while. You can probably hear my voice still sounds weird. I'm getting over a cold. Last night I was trying to film and my camera battery died. I went for the battery that was on the charger. It'd been on there for hours, and it turns out it wasn't seated right and wasn't charged at all. On top of that, I think a few of the last clips I shot all didn't have audio because the mics were out of battery. So I was batting 1,000 last night. I gave up. Tonight, I've been out here, accomplished quite a bit. The intake is back on, as you probably saw before, valve covers and stuff. New carburetor is on. I used one of those adapters to go from a spread bore to a square bore. This is a 69 Chrysler 300 OEM 4-barrel Holley. I believe it's a 650. I rebuilt it with some stuff over here. I re-cobbled the kickdown linkage, and I may do this a different way, but I'm just gonna see if this works. The new points distributor is in. I've hooked up all the plug wires. I put a new set of points in there and gapped them, hopefully correctly, and stabbed that distributor right back in where it was. All of the coolant hoses and stuff are hooked up. I've taken care of the wiring for the points distributor swap. As far as I can tell from looking on the forums, you can just wire that points distributor to the negative side of that coil that was in the car with the lean burn. It's already run through a ballast resistor on the firewall, so it should be that dropped voltage that Chrysler wants across those points. See what happens. Might take a second for fuel to get up to the carb. Look at that, it fired already. I don't know what the timing is at. Yep, we do have squirter action. Looks like my fuel line's leaking a little bit. Hey, there we go. All right. All right, there we go. Finally, it wants to idle. Give her a little less of the screw here. Okay, it runs, doesn't run well. My suspect is that this used but decent carburetor that I tried to rebuild is still junk. I think there's a ton of junk still stuck in the idle circuit somewhere, and it leaks from everywhere, even with brand new gaskets. So unfortunately, I might need to look at a different carb. Out here again, it's Tuesday night, we leave Friday. Last night I was trying to get this thing to even idle, and this carburetor I just rebuilt sucks. It just does. So I'm gonna try to take all the parts off of that one, clean up the other carb I have, put the good parts in that one. We'll see if it works. Here we go with our second used, mostly rebuilt carburetor. Still don't love the way that this thing looks. We're gonna try this one. Try to get this thing to light off. Sprayed a little brake clean down the throat. Close. Okay, do we have squirter yet? Yep. Just a little bit more advanced, maybe. Okay. I think it is just repeatedly flooding. It's been a few minutes off camera. I put all the new parts from this carburetor that I just rebuilt. I put those in this carburetor and it leaked. So I took it back apart and put the new needle and seats in this carburetor, tried to run it, and this thing was an absolute swimming pool. It's leaking right past the needle and seat, even though they're brand new, coming right out of the boosters. This carb is also junk. But Dean is here. Dean was in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I came to inspect your swimming pool of gasoline. I don't recommend it.
No, this thing was barely running. It's basically just gushing fuel everywhere. So that carburetor and the original carburetor are all going in the trash.
In the bin.
Okay, we're back. Dean got some cheese curds because what else would you do when you're in Wisconsin?
Yeah, Wisconsin, the cheese curds real good.
They're very, yeah, it's what he said. It looks like quadruple homicide of carburetors on my bench, but literally 40 minutes ago we found this on Marketplace, a very gently used Edelbrock 1406. I'm literally going to take it out of the box, bolt it on, and we're going to hope that this thing runs.
Trying.
It might need just a
little tickle.
Smidge of fuel yet.
Oh yeah, it's a completely dry, perfectly clean carburetor. We did open it up and it does look nice.
It's brand new. Slightly used.
Perfect.
Finally! 3 carburetors later, we finally have an engine that idles. I think we're at like 12 or 13 degrees initial with that. And this thing. Wow. Yep, okay, we needed a carb. If you end up doing this swap on your previously lean burn equipped 318, you will need a special bracket on the carburetor so that you can get your kickdown linkage and throttle cable hooked up. Here's the part number from Edelbrock 1481. It goes on with 2 screws right here, and then it gives you a place to mount the stud that came factory on this car to pick up the kickdown linkage and the throttle cable. All right, we're back out here again. It's Wednesday. We leave on Friday. I have tonight and tomorrow night to get this car as finished as I possibly can before we leave. Last night we got this thing to run finally with a new used carburetor. Seems to be pretty good, but now we need to eat the toad. I got to get that brake line replaced for the front driver's side. I know it's going to be a little bit messy, but I think I'm going to take this line off the car. That way I can bend up the new one to be exactly right and then get it back in. It'll be a little bit easier to estimate how much length I need on pipe. I usually underestimate. Here we are, front driver's side. Here's that new line that I bent up, fits right in place. I already pulled the spring clip that holds the soft line and coincidentally the entire caliper with it. We look good. Okay, I'm gonna get the new rotors out here, get some wheel seals pounded into them, and get this inner bearing out of here, etc. Okay, so there's the new pad. It clips into the outer side of the caliper. Very strange braking setup. If you're curious, that's a little better view of how that goes together. Dodge Diplomat front disc brakes. So I just put new shoes on the back here. Been soaking the bleeder for a little bit with some penetrant. We're gonna see if it doesn't break free. This will tell us whether we're gonna be doing wheel cylinders right now. Okay. Holy cow, it broke free. I'm gonna jump over to the driver's side, do the same thing, get the drums back on, and with the fronts done, we should be ready to bleed up this whole system. So under here, I got the new rear soft line in here, and miraculously, all 3 hard lines came loose. Driver's side drum, everything's back in there, adjusted up. I will rebuild them, you know, just in case tech looks under here, because this thing is gonna, well, it's gonna be near a drag strip, and it's gonna intimidate so many people that they might actually tech inspect this car just because they're scared of it. They want to find some reason to keep me off that track. So yeah, I always like to paint right over those lug nuts too. So we'll probably go after the shocks and then get this thing down on the ground and bleed. To give you an idea, these shocks, push this all the way down, and there it stays.
Shocking.
All right, so we got the shocks put on in the rear. Those are all good. Can't believe how bad the original shocks were. Dean is finishing up the front passenger side shock.
This is the weirdest looking Volvo I've ever seen.
Yeah, I was trying to convince him that this was in fact a Volvo. Also, I think that we have the fender trim for this thing. So you know what that means. We get the self-tappers out and put that back on. In all seriousness, once the shocks are bolted in all the way, we're gonna drop the car down, bleed the brakes, and try to get this thing out to go get tacos. All right, brakes are bled front and rear. We actually have solid pedal. We have fluid moving at each wheel. This is pretty good. All the shocks are on. Off camera, I picked up a set of whatever these are on Amazon. These are like Travel Star, whatever. They're like one of the only tire options available quickly. So I had these mounted and balanced off camera. They're super cheap, but they're new, a lot better than the old tires. So we're gonna get these mounted up, take this thing for a lap. Here we go. Oh yeah.
Not bad. That starts really nice with that new car.
Yeah, it does. It's rich.
Yeah,
for sure.
I can feel my eyes. I'm crying.
Yeah, it's also dead cold, so
yeah.
Might have to mess with that carburetor a little bit more. But look at this thing. All right, let's take it for a lap.
I'm down.
Got great.
Yeah. Look, it stops. That's pretty awesome.
Power steering left.
You said not enough power steering. All right, we're cruising, but do you have high beams?
Yeah, somewhere.
On the floor?
There.
Oh, it looks terrible in the camera, but it's way better.
So this thing runs well. I still think I need to mess with the carburetor. And transmission's a little funny right now, but it rides pretty good.
It's actually a really comfortable ride.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
Obviously some more stuff to mess with. I think I also have to mess with the linkage for the kickdown. I think that is a little funny, so I don't want to drive it too far, but we'll get it warm, get it back to the shop, and just check trans fluid level and whatever. Okay, it's the next day. I'm out here on the test track, and here's what's going on with this car. Put it in drive, start accelerating. Second gear. Still in second. Now we're coasting. We're actually decelerating, even though my foot's on the throttle. There we go. I think that's third. But as soon as you let off the throttle, engine freewheels. This thing does run and drive. However, I think the transmission is out of it. Something with the front clutch or piston or something in the transmission from the Googling I've done is out on this thing, and it will not maintain pressure on the clutch pack going into third. That's why I sometimes can get it into third by flooring it. Other times it just falls right out of third. It's not maintaining pressure. So our last ditch effort is to try and swap the transmission on this thing tonight. We leave tomorrow night. Sam has a 904 that he bought used. We know nothing about it, but I knew nothing about this transmission either. We're gonna try to swap it in tonight so I can leave tomorrow. All right, let me catch you up. Got the drive shaft out and started working on disconnecting speedometer cable and a few other things. I got the pan dropped because it's an automatic, so there's really no way we're gonna get it out of here without draining it and spilling all over the floor and making this a mess. Okay, here we go. Yeah, this fluid is definitely dark. So here's what the pan looks like. And you can kind of see in there that there is some material floating around, but not really all that much. There's some pretty heavy grit there. And the magnet is covered with some clutch material, but not a ton. The filter doesn't look too bad either. Huh. This transmission actually looks pretty clean inside. Look at this right here. This is black, hardened, what I believe to be seal of some sort. Everything I read on the forum said this is what happens to the seals inside this transmission if it gets too hot and or gets old and worn out. So that right there is indicative that there is in fact a seal that is out, or several seals that are out, which would explain why we can't maintain pressure. All right, it's been a minute. Everything accessory to the transmission has been removed. Trans lines are off to the side. Linkage is disconnected, all that. And now we are working on the torque converter bolts, one at a time through this convenient access hole. There. There we go. Oh. One transmission out, and we're gonna put a better one in. All right, so here is our very unhappy 904 piece of junk, if you would call it that. And here is our donor 904. And looking at them close, or looking at them next to each other, they look to be the same length and have the same mounting provisions and everything. All right, sorry for not including you, but transmission actually went right back in place pretty easy. We're gonna put 2 bolts in it quick, drop the pan, check it out. If it looks even remotely close, put it right back on, and we're gonna keep reassembling. Okay, so this transmission, I don't think it looks a whole lot better. There's a bunch of what I assume is clutch material in the bottom here. There's very fine glitter in the fluid, but I don't know. The filter is pretty dark, but It also seems like it's probably been sitting for a long time. I'm not sure. At this point, I don't know. What do you think? Just put it together. Roll the dice and see if it works, because the other one looked really good when it came out, but it didn't work at all. All right, so a little update. Drive shaft is back in. Transmission is reinstalled. All the linkages and everything are hooked back up. The starter is in and the wiring is connected. We got to drop this thing back down, get it filled up with ATF, and start it up and see if it does anything. All right, been idling for a few minutes to see if we have anything. Reverse! Hey! Drive! Yes! All right. Fuck yeah. It goes into reverse, goes into drive, and it goes into reverse softly, not at full freaking pressure like before. All right. So, go into reverse. No? There. I don't think this thing, the shifter is quite right anymore, but there, reverse, and not horrible engagement like before. Okay, first, second, third, with a little hunt, with a little baby hunt. But it's in third gear. All right, we're stopped. Here we go. Let's just make sure this thing's shifting right. Oh no, that was weird. Okay, that was weird. First gear engagement was harsh. Okay, but we're in third gear already. Look at this. 70 miles an hour, we're in third gear and it's staying in third gear. I don't want to drive it too much more. I know we need to get more fluid. We're down about a pint and probably have to play with that kick down a little bit, but dude, this thing is working. I know you can't see me at all right now, but I am psyched. This completely mystery transmission that we had no idea about actually works. Literally 10 p.m. the night before we leave, we put a completely unknown transmission in this car, filled it with fluid, and it appears that it is working. We got all three gears. We were doing 70 miles an hour. I was being really easy on it. I still have to deal with, I got to reset timing. I think that got moved. I got to do a carburetor and mess with the kickdown, but thank you. Thank you. We have a transmission that works. We're going to Tucson in a Diplomat. Good afternoon. It is Friday, the day we are leaving. I need to address this leaking wheel cylinder. This started up after we got the brakes bled. It started weeping a little bit, and now it's just gushing. I have new wheel cylinder. I'm gonna pull this apart, slap that in here, and of course, the brake line rusted off, so I'll whip up a new one of those. Here's the new wheel cylinder going in. I'm waiting to put the piston pieces in until it's mounted up. Got some new bolts. I'll get this put together, make a brake line, come back. There we go. There's our new brake line all run all the way to the brand new wheel cylinder. Brakes are reassembled. I'm gonna hose this off, get the drum on there, and get the master cylinder filled, and let this thing gravity bleed. All right, I've got all four bleeders loose. I'm just letting the whole system gravity bleed. Meanwhile, I'm gonna run around and grease everything I can. Upper ball joints, lower ball joints, tie rod ends, whatever. There's a ton of grease on them already, but a little more can't hurt. Drop the oil real quick, and then get to packing. All right, brake light is still on, I know. Here we go. Shuddering a little bit. There's second gear. There's third. Okay, I think it's gonna be good enough for me. I gotta get packed and get headed out. All right, finally, car runs and drives and stops. We need to hit the road. I gotta pack the trunk full of tools and clothes and all that stuff and get going. Gotta get all the way down to Iowa and then ultimately down to Joplin, Missouri for Poverty Tour. Stay tuned to the next video where we try to take this car all the way to Tucson Dragway for Duct Tape Drag. Wish us luck.